If you spend enough time looking at vintage and neo-vintage watches, you start to realize something quite funny. The market does not always reward the best watches. Very often it rewards the loudest brands, the most hyped references, and the names that everybody already knows. And that's exactly why watches like this one still exist in that sweet spot where they offer a lot more than the market gives credit for. Today, I want to talk about the Maurice Lacroix Masterpiece Grand Guichet, a watch that, in my opinion, is quite overlooked. At first glance, it may look like a classic dress watch from the late 90s or early 2000s. Elegant, slightly conservative, maybe even a bit quiet, but once you start looking into it properly, you realize there's much more going on in there than most people think. Because this is not just another generic dress watch. This piece gives you a proper big date complication, a very solid ETA-based movement, and on top of that, a real 18-karat gold bezel. Not gold-plated, not gold tone, not some fake luxury effect, actual gold. And somehow, despite all of that, still a price range where it feels seriously undervalued. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of watch I love to talk about. By the way, kudos to Carlos, my brother in Brothers in Watches, for finding this piece and allowing me to record it. So let's talk about it in details. The first thing that makes this Grand Guichet stand out is the dial layout. Maurice Lacroix really got the balance right here. You have the large date window at 12 o'clock, which immediately gives the watch personality, and then you have the small second at 6 o'clock, which keeps the whole design symmetrical and elegant. It actually feels refined. It doesn't feel like they just threw a complication into a standard watch and just call it a day. And the big date itself is a real feature, not just a visual gimmick. This is a double disc system, which means one disc handles the tens and the other handles the units. So instead of a small little date window hidden somewhere on the dial, you get this bold, clean display that gives the watch a much more premium feel. This type of display has always been associated with more upscale horology, and seeing it here at this price point is part of what makes this watch so appealing. Silver dials are probably the most classic, and many sources mention that the Grand Guichet line use solid silver dials, which is another very nice detail. Some examples come in black, and you will also see variations in the market from Roman numerals to apply indexes or even mixed layouts. But overall, the feeling remains the same. Elegant, a bit traditional, but with enough character to avoid looking boring. And then we move to the case, which is where things get even more interesting. This reference is usually a bimetal construction. So you have the stainless steel case, but the bezel is 18-karat gold, often marked as 750, which is the Swiss standard for 18-karat gold. And I think this is one of the strongest selling points of the watch, because in this segment, a lot of brands try to achieve the same effect with plating or coating. Here, you are getting the real thing. That changed the perception of the watch. It gives warmth. It gives a more luxurious feel. And it also gives a touch of intrinsic value that you simply don't get from steel-only pieces. Size-wise, it's also very wearable. The watch is around 38 millimeters, which for me is a fantastic size. It does not wear oversized, it stays elegant, and it feels very comfortable on the wrist. Thickness is under 10 millimeters, so it slides easily under a cuff and keeps that refined profile that you want from a watch like this. So already, just from the dial and case, we have a watch that is visually more interesting than people expect. But the inside matters too. Unfortunately, this is another area where the watch makes a lot of sense. Inside the Grand Guichet, you get the Maurice Lacroix caliber ML58, which is based on the ETA 2892 family. And honestly, that's great news. The ETA 2892 is one of the best known Swiss automatic movements, respected for being slim, reliable, and widely serviceable. Maurice Lacroix took the strong base and adapted it for this watch, adding the big date setup and branding as a ML58. And from a practical point of view, this is exactly what you want. Because yes, we all love interesting movements and exotic calibers, but when you're actually buying and wearing watches, reliability and serviceability matter a lot. especially if you're buying a pre-owned. With the ML58, you're not dealing with something obscure that only one specialist in Europe can handle. You are dealing with a movement architecture that most competent watchmakers will understand. That makes this watch much safer than a lot of similar price niche pieces that look good on paper but become a headache the moment they need work. Now, of course, the only thing you need to pay attention is the big date complication itself, because this is the part that makes it special, but also is the part that needs to be working correctly. The two discs should align well. The date should switch cleanly and evenly, should feel sharp and precise. If the date is slow, misaligned, or looks sloppy, that's usually a sign that the watch needs a service or that the mechanism has been stressed. And like many other calendar watches, you also want to be careful when adjusting the date. As a general rule, you should avoid changing it during the danger zone in the late evening and early mornings, because that's when the mechanism is already engaged and you don't want to force it. So this is not a watch to buy blindly, but if you find a good example, it really delivers. And that brings us to the market, because this is probably the most exciting part. When you look at the actual prices, the Maurice Lacroix Grand Guichet is all over the place. You will see auction results in the lower hundreds for pieces that likely need service, and then you will see dealers closer to 1,000 or even more for a clean example. In general, the real market seems to sit somewhere around the middle zone, where a decent honest watch is still available for a very fairly price. And that's why I find this reference so appealing, especially if you're looking for a dressy watch, because when you step back and think about what you're actually getting, it's hard not to feel that the market is sleeping on it. You are getting a proper Swiss mechanical watch with a recognized ETA-based caliber, a real big date complication, elegant proportions, an actual 18-karat gold bezel. If another brand with more prestige on the dial offered the same package, people would probably be paying way more. And for collectors, that creates opportunity. For flippers, it can also create opportunity as long as you buy smart. Condition matters, originality matters, service history matters, as always. But if you get into one of these at the right price, I really think there is a room there. Not only financially, but also in terms of pure watch value. It's a piece that feels more special than the money. And for me, that's always the best kind of buy. So final thoughts, the Maurice Lacroix Masterpiece Grand Guichet is one of those watches that rewards people who look beyond hype. It's elegant, mechanically interesting, easy to wear, and just unusual enough to stand out without becoming flashy. The big date gives character, the ETA-based movement gives credibility, and the 18-karat gold bezel gives that little extra touch that makes it feel more premium than most people expect. And it's not the kind of watch that screams for attention, but it's absolutely the kind of watch that makes another collector stop and ask, wait, what is that? And honestly, those are often the most fun watches to own. If you enjoyed this one, let me know what you think about Maurice Lacroix as a brand, and whether you think pieces like these are still undervalued. And if you want, I can also make a second part comparing this Grand Guichet to other underrated dress watches in the same price range. Thank you, and see you in the next one.